Title is person size.
Hello there, how are you? How are you doing? Did you talk with Henry Ford?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay, so we're going to have to put something up on the screen. As long as you guys talk before the meeting. Okay, that's fine. We'll talk with you.
Okay.
So you all talked about secondary church?
Yes.
So it's going to be on the
It's going to be on there. And four votes.
Yeah, I don't know. Rachel, how are you? Good. Oops, sorry. No idea. We'll take a photo or something. Why don't you look around? I know that look. I know what that looked like when we took Robin.
Actually went to Oregon service for, I guess it was a beach party.
So we not, oh, there we go. Okay, so this ought to fix that. Still good otherwise? Think so? But did you need to be color?
Oh, they really do. And they're going
Well, hi, I never see you anymore. I email purchase. I know you're alive and well. You send me an email. Are you, ready to go? Yeah. We're all set. We're live. We're ready. You all ready? Alderman Grover? Yes. Alderman Holmes? Everyone ready? Welcome. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, November 4th Rules Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting in order. Okay, we have enough for quorum. Citizens' comment? Seeing none? Yeah, there's no one here. Okay. Move on to the next item, 3, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 7th. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On top of the second page, there's a sentence that was brought to my attention that does not make sense. The word that doesn't make sense is the word "since." Really, the second full sentence at the very top, Alderman Grover said, "Since committees are not covered by our normal formal rules for citizen comments." And I have no idea what I meant to say there. So it's probably a good idea just to strike the sentence if I
Okay.
can't recreate it. So with that amendment, I move approval of the minutes of our meeting from October 7th.
Do we have a second? Second. All All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, thank you. Next, item 4, approval of the 2014 City Council meeting calendar. Any,
Mr. Chair,
do-
here it is.
okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. I heard a second. Mr. City Manager, did you want to speak to the schedule?
We put the schedule out every year. We try to avoid ward meetings and holidays that fall on these dates, and I believe Ms. Francello does an excellent job of sussing through the holidays. I don't know that I know we had a conflict in September with a ward meeting in 2013, which we avoided through the adoption of the schedule. But I think otherwise we feel confident that this is what it should be in order to avoid ward meetings and holidays. So that's why we ask the council every year to approve the list, recognizing that those instances do occur.
Okay. Are there any comments? Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate including the school calendar, namely the school spring break, as a significant date in the calendar, which is relevant to many of us. And then for our information, school, I'm thinking will be resuming August 25th for both school districts. So that's when everyone's back to school.
All right. So just a reminder to the public that all of our city council meetings are on the second and fourth Monday. Also, please note our new start time for administrative public works is 6 p.m. All those in favor of accepting this, if we have to, I guess signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Next item is number 5, dissolution of the Evanston Township response to the League of Women Voters.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you have in your packet an additional copy of a memorandum that was in the City Council packet on October 28th, which walks through each of the questions that were raised by the League of Women Voters. Mr. Chair, is it your wish to have me briefly review this? Would you like me just to answer questions? What's your pleasure?
How about? I would suggest to briefly review, and then if there are any questions, we can take them as they come.
Great. So on page 8 of your packet this evening is where the memorandum begins. The first question was regarding township programs and services and how are they currently delivered. As I think you all are aware, back in September, the township offices moved here to the Civic Center. So we have the township supervisor staff which operate the general assistance and emergency assistance program, and then the township assessor and her staff are located down the hall. So those services, I think, are well known, and I have included as an attachment a portion of the 2013 Novak Consulting Report, which detailed those services as well. Question 2, how will the transition be made and how the city intends to continue the work done by the township? Of course, this memorandum was submitted by the League of Women Voters prior to Mr. Gaspard's resignation. So as I think you are all aware, we are beginning to look at how those services could be already integrated into the city. We're proposing that if the township is dissolved, that general assistance, emergency assistance, and the assessment services be continued. The state law that is allowing for the election requires that the city continue these services, so those would continue, would be the plan. The general assistance and emergency assistance would continue at the same level as provided by the township. We're looking right now at those processes, and Avonda Thomas-Smith, our Director of Health, has been very helpful in working with the township staff to identify how those monies are being spent on the general assistance side, especially in the areas of health, and seeing how we can perhaps increase services and also be mindful to the costs associated with them.
Before you move on, question, Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wally, I would really like you to provide us with the guidelines or regulations for administering emergency services dollars. I've noted on several occasions lately under the township, there are violations of what I consider to be the regulations. But they might have been changed without notifying me, so just like you to clarify that. And also, if Human Services could have some input on those rules.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bobkowitz, if you could clarify, too, how the city would be able to resume or take over access to the proprietary software that our assessor's office uses, as well as whatever software is used for the administration of general assistance?
Alderman Grover, members of the committee, under statute, if the township is dissolved, we would be assuming those services. So I don't anticipate any difficulty working with Cook County. Mayor Tisdale and I met with Supervisor Commissioner Sufferton today. We will work closely with him as needed to ensure that access continues. But under state law, we should be entitled to that access without any difficulty.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you for continuing to keep Commissioner Sufferton on board.
Okay.
Again, so we would look to continue the general assistance and emergency assistance at the same levels and look to hopefully enhance those levels. We also think there are opportunities to incorporate other work that the City of Evanston does, and so I'm proposing that we have 2 community meetings with city staff that's involved in the Health Department, Community Development Department, and Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department over the next couple of months to share these general ideas, share some of the synergies we see with those departments, and get additional feedback. So as if the township is dissolved in March, we can have the community's best thoughts as to how we can leverage those services.
Just a quick follow. Alderman Holmes. I was just waiting until he was finished with his.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's where I have some concerns, City Manager, in terms of sort of weeding those programs or weeding them out to other departments within the city without some base for them within what we would call the township. I guess we'd still call it the township. I'm not sure what we'd even call it. And so I'm glad that you're going to be looking at it, and I hope you would keep us updated in terms of how that would work. It's just a question in my head how we would really divide those services between those departments.
And Alderman Holmes, members of the committee, it's not my intention to divide the services that are currently provided by the township. In the memo on the next page, I recommend that the health department take on the services that the township currently provides under the general assistance and emergency assistance services under a human services division in the health department. Really, the purpose of the meeting is just to confirm that with the community and to talk about some of the other programs that we currently provide to see what synergies there may be between those departments, but not from an organizational standpoint to move senior programs or housing programs or anything like that, just to see how we can best leverage those existing resources. But I'm proposing with this memorandum that the services that we traditionally know as general assistance and emergency assistance be incorporated into the Department of Health.
Okay.
And just a follow-up question. Did you have another question, Alderman Holmes? Thank you. Somewhere I read that we've scheduled community meetings with the residents, and I'm trying to understand the timeline between those meetings and your conversations with our city staff.
Well, I'm proposing that the conversations with city staff be with the community.
Okay.
So to have 2 community meetings, if we can, between now and the end of the year, certainly have 1 community meeting between now and the end of the year at the very least, and then come back and report if we've heard anything from the community that is either contrary to these recommendations or significantly different prior to the election.
Okay. Alderman Rainey.
2 points. Number one, don't you think having these meetings prior to the election is a little presumptuous? And number two, could it be considered campaigning?
And I would happily take the council's direction. I think from the memorandum, as far as responding, I think it's important to have a conversation with the community at some point And if the council feels that it's more appropriate to do it after dissolution, election is conducted, that's fine. I've not discussed this with the city attorney. If I'm happy to discuss it with him if he feels that there is a concern that those meetings might in any way be construed as campaigning, then perhaps we don't do that.
Alderman Rainey, that's it?
I'm finished.
Okay. Alderman Grover?
I believe the last time that we had the township on the ballot for the question of dissolution, our advisory referendum, we also had on the ballot the school tax issue, expansion issue, and our electrical aggregation issue. And we did conduct community meetings before that, and the goal was to provide information. And it was a straightforward presentation of information about how electrical aggregation was going to happen and roll out, and what the proposed referendum meant. So I'm not sure if we would be tripped up by the electioneering ban if we were to provide information in community meetings about what our plan would be if the referendum were to succeed.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. But we have good precedent, and I'm assuming that the same rules would apply, and that we would be very careful about, in the community meetings, presenting straightforward information about the proposed referendum.
And Alderman Rainey?
Well, if at these meetings, people say to us, so wait, you're going to be doing all this stuff, and you're telling us that it'll be cheaper to dissolve the township, and you can do, how are you going to respond to those? I mean, I think I'd like to hear from Grant after he thinks about this for a while, but I just think we should be careful. I would hate to see us blow this.
Yeah. And one of the things that I would advocate for, that I always have, is I'm concerned about the services. And so I would hope that part of this community exercise means that we'll actually take a few minutes to listen to those that are served by the township services as well.
I think to avoid being accused of campaigning in any way, that there is no reason why the city cannot have discussions on human services or with the committee as a whole or in the rules committee about how we move forward, and not go to the public at this time. I feel that it would be very difficult knowing how some people are going to respond, that you would not end up electioneering. That's all I'm saying. But I don't see why workshops among ourselves could be construed as campaigning, because they would be for our own edification and, developing how we're going to go forward.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk, and then
Yeah, thank you.
Bob Ashburst.
Sue Calder's here tonight. Could we just ask Sue, is the League of Women Voters planning on having an informational meeting on this, a public informational meeting?
I'm not on the board, so I don't know what they're doing.
Okay. I mean, I think that would be the place to have the discussion.
What discussion? I mean, I don't want the League of Women Voters making decisions for us.
No, not making a decision, but I mean, they're very good at having an objective.
Well, but they can
public
do that
informational-
anyway. I mean, I'm sure that is not the alternative to our planning for the future.
Oh, no, right. But trying to address the issue of electioneering.
Alderman Burris.
I too have concerns about the electioneering part, not because I think that we would do that deliberately, but during the last when this happened with the electrical aggregation, it wasn't a problem. But definitely with the school district, there were school board members that came to one of my ward meetings and said, can we just share information? And it really became they were very much saying why they were in favor, even questions. It wasn't an informational piece. They were definitely slanted one way. Obviously, that wasn't the city, it was the school district, but I can see how that could happen in the same type of forum.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, certainly we'll take your comments to heart. We certainly don't want to do any electioneering. I also recall participating in some of those meetings, just talking about the advisory referendum, and it was sometimes difficult. The electric aggregation issue was pretty straightforward. I think perhaps we could maybe look at having another discussion at either Human Services or Rules after the first of the year, maybe just to repeat what we're talking about this evening, and if there's questions or comments, maybe do something like that. So I'll work with the Corporation Council and come up with a plan, a revised plan on community outreach as we move forward. If I may then, Mr. Chair, other parts of the...
Did you want to?
I did want, that's why I have my light on. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not seeing anything. Okay. Alderman Holmes?
I'm just wondering, City Manager, maybe once you get the response back from the league, that will give us some guidance too, in terms of they may have some ideas, and I mean, they spurred this much in terms of getting this. They may also have some ideas about community meetings or informational, and I'm not saying that they're doing it for us, but in terms of informing the community. So we might want to wait till we hear back from them as well.
Very good. So again, moving on back to page 8 of your packet. We've talked about general assistance, emergency assistance. I'm proposing that we also continue the property assessment work, that one staff member would be assigned to continue this work, and that staff member would be located within our Administrative Services Department. I think that will provide the type of work that is required, and will continue the work that's been ongoing with the Township Assessor's Office. The next question was, where will the current township activities be carried out with the city government? What city departments will be accountable for current township programs? Will any current township activities be contracted out to Evanston agencies? If so, which? And as I've mentioned before, the health department would be the location of the general assistance and emergency assistance activities, and then we would have the property assessment function in administrative services. We don't plan to contract out any township activities further than what is already contracted out, and they have several miscellaneous contracts as part of the general assistance program regarding job training. I would hope that we can continue to work again with partners who do some of this work, again, not only the job training piece, but also the health piece, so that we can provide additional services. The next question, funding. Where will funds for continued support of the township come from? Will the township tax levy be transferred and become part of the city tax levy? Will there be a separate levy specifically for general assistance and assessor programs? What savings are anticipated from dissolving the township? Will the city resume responsibility for funding the Evanston Social Services, mental health services that have been funded through the township in recent years? And I'm going to actually read this word for word because this is covering a lot of territory. Currently, the township is funded under 2 separate line items levied on the property tax, the town fund, and the general assistance fund. I'm proposing that this be reduced to one levy, a general assistance fund. This levy would include costs of operating the general assistance and emergency assistance programs. In addition, I'm proposing that the full cost of the mental health board grants be included in this levy rather than split between the general assistance levy and the general fund levy. But I'm proposing that the cost of the assessor program be shifted to the general fund. All other miscellaneous grants that have been made by the township to the city, which include support for the Summer Youth Employment Program, the community picnic, would be funded in the city's general fund. Savings anticipated with these changes include the elimination of office rental costs, which began September 2013, and reduced administrative costs. These cost savings will total approximately $225,000 a year based on the most recent audited financial statements. A more precise savings will be known when I report back to the council on January 14, and that was anticipating the community meetings. What we're doing right now, looking at the administrative costs, are really looking very carefully at the contracts that the township has for miscellaneous goods and services. They have a very expensive copier contract, a very expensive postage meter contract. I'm working with staff to see what it will take to get out of these contracts, because those items clearly duplicate things that we can provide here at the Civic Center. We've also been paying for an accountant to review the work of the finance staff member in the township, so that will be going away starting at the end of December and will be replaced with city staff providing that service. So that was a savings that wasn't contemplated as part of this $225,000. So the goal here is to continue the services both on the general assistance, emergency assistance, and assessing side, but look at some savings on the administrative side. Personnel. What will happen to current township employees and elected officials? What city staff will assume township responsibilities? Will new staff be hired by the city to carry out current township programs? I've met with the township staff. I think they understand the dynamics at work here. They understand among those staff members that are providing direct services to the community that those services will continue, and it is very, very likely that they will continue in those positions. There are also services that are more administrative in nature, and those staff members understand that it is likely if the township dissolves that those positions may go away. So I've committed to work with each member of the staff of the township to ensure that if the solution does pass, that there is a transition period that makes sense for them to do everything we can. If the positions are no longer needed to provide these services, that other positions be found for them with the city of Evanston, and if that is not a possibility, that appropriate severance would be established for them. So we're continuing to move forward there. There is a need to hire one additional staff member in the township to help with general assistance, and Director Thomas Smith and I are moving forward to fill that position. We don't anticipate any other staffing adjustments for the township. Question asked regarding the elected positions, and I think you're all aware of the circumstances there. Timing, how long will the transition?
Quick question. Do we have I think a month ago, and I don't know if we'll get to this at our Human Services committee meeting that we have after this meeting, there was a question that myself and Alderman Burris raised in terms of the actual numbers of clients that are served. Do you have a sense, a month later, exactly how many clients are being served by the township?
I've discovered there are multiple systems used to count, and those systems are not in conjunction with one another and have been that way for many years. So I'm not confident that the township board has received an accurate number. I don't know if you've ever received an accurate number. So we're going to continue to work on that. I think the number is much higher than the numbers that have been reported to you. I think that the questions that have been asked of representatives of the township have not always made it back to the staff that actually provide the service. And I think in asking those questions of the staff that actually provide the service, I'm getting very different kinds of answers. And I'm not, as I sit here this evening, completely clear as to what those numbers are. My sense is the numbers are much higher. And it's not that the numbers are lower, that the numbers are higher. I think that the requests on reports over time from the township board, there's been some loss in translation, and I don't think it's anyone's fault, but there has been. And I think something that Director Thomas Smith and I quickly learned is that there is that discrepancy. And so we're working diligently to clean up that discrepancy, mostly in the general assistance in the way that is captured. So we're going to work to clean that up and bring that to you as soon as we can.
Quick, one moment, Alderman Rainey. So I think since I've been on council, I've seen numbers as low as 139, and I think as high as 500 in the last report that we've seen. Do you think it's somewhere? Do you think it's somewhere around? Well, I think if you had to take a guess.
I think that, again, it's what question are you asking? If you're asking how many people received an assistance check in the month of October, for example, I signed them all last week, and that was a number that was in that 130 odd category. But when I asked the question, how long have some of these people been on, and how many people have we served over the course of a year? That's a number that I'm still trying to get my hands around. I think that we have been led to believe that the number has been that 130 number, and that's the number of people that's been served over a period of time. That may be a monthly number, but it's not an annual number. I have been able to sort of look at how long people have been on, because I think I had a concern that we were going to find lots of people who've been on general assistance for long periods of time, years and years and years. And at least the numbers I have seen to date indicate that 95% have been on a year or less, and it's been a very small number that have been on there longer than that. The question becomes, when does someone come back and forth? Because I believe there's a lot of back and forth where someone has been off for a period of time, then they come back on, and how is that properly measured? So again, the individuals who are working for the township, who work on general assistance and emergency assistance, desperately want to provide accurate information to you. It's just a matter of framing the question in a way that the systems they use can properly answer.
Alderman Rainey, followed by Alderman Holmes.
Well, the number that I'm interested in is the average monthly number of clients receiving housing and personal checks. That's the number I want, because over the years, that is the number upon which we base the budget number for housing and personal assistance. There's no other number. I mean, yes, there are numbers about how much does it cost to run Work Opportunity, and yes, there are people there. But the number that we base the client payment on is the average monthly number. If anybody has ever seen a 500 number, I would like to know about it. And so I think it's really important, City Manager, or excuse me, Mr. Supervisor, that you provide us with real detail on this information, because to me this is the most the only reason the township exists is to provide assistance for people who can receive it through no other service, none at all. So we need to know how many are there. It's very important. And I am absolutely mortified to hear you say that we have received inaccurate numbers.
And again, my sense is that the monthly number has been a number that you've heard. The question I have that I've not really got an answer to is, how many individuals does this represent? How many individuals are helped by the township over the course of 6 months or a year? That's the question I have not gotten a clear answer.
You mean okay, so we know how many, I'm assuming
Yes,
we
thank
know
you.
how many are receiving a personal or housing or personal and housing checks every month.
That's
We know,
correct.
we've got to know that, because you just have to count the checks.
That's correct.
Now, whether or not they're all qualified, whether there are some who aren't receiving them who are qualified, that's detail I certainly don't have. Others, what other services are we providing to people who are not a township client, meaning an individual not receiving general assistance, either housing or personal? And how do we account for those, and what service are they receiving? Because I do not consider a general assistance client a person who, for 1 month of the year, receives an emergency housing check. I don't consider that a client, because that is a service they took over from the city when they had all this extra money, and I'm assuming they had all this extra money because they overtaxed people for general assistance money when we didn't have the clients to serve. So that I really want to know that, and also the whole issue that was brought to us by the Mental Health Board. I don't feel confident on that either. So.
Well,
but the numbers of people, it's critical. I really want to know that.
And I agree 100%, Alderman Rainey.
And I never knew that it was an issue, so that the question got asked before.
Well, I mean, and again, that's one of the issues that we brought up at Human Services, Alderman Holmes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that we constantly talk about the township and GA, and people get confused about the numbers, Alderman Rainey. I think, well, some people do get confused in terms of the GA clients, in terms of the people who are certified, who are taken in as the clients, and those numbers do usually go anywhere from that maybe 139 up to 199. I think we've been up as high as 199, or 89, something like that.
I don't remember that.
Well,
but anyway, those are the people I'm thinking about.
I know those are the people you're talking about. But then when you just say the township, the other services that are provided via the township, those people need to be counted in some way. Someone needs to be counted, keeping track of those, because they do receive services through tax dollars, whether it's a one-time rental check or if it's food or whatever. And those are when you begin to get the other numbers. And I think that that's probably what Alderman Breathwaite was referring to, because we did get numbers like that in the Human Services Committee when we begin to listen to the staff in terms of the services, the other services that are provided by the township.
Do you have your Cook County
Well,
numbers by any
it
chance?
concerns me that we're providing services from the township to people who are not GA clients, other than the emergency assistance, housing,
And Alderman, and members of the committee, we're continuing to work with that. I've been struck by the individuals who work at the township, how dedicated they are, and how frustrated they have been over, I think, a long period of time, that there's been this disconnect. And they are attempting to track everything. They want to provide information to you, but there's been some loss in the translation between the work that they do and the information that you get. And one of my priorities is to work with them, sort that out, and allow us to move forward. So that's where we're at with the collection of the data.
Okay. Alderman Grover.
I would just say that we felt it from this end. So if you could tell our township employees, we felt that disconnect too. It's been mutual, and I'm really glad that we're getting on top of it.
And just something I'd share with the members of the council, didn't have the opportunity to sit on Human Services. One of the staff, I think for the first time that I've served on the council, talked about the services and the numbers that are impacted. So one of my concerns that I just want to be clear and voice is, since we don't have an accurate number of exactly how many residents are being served, we may want to take a close look at that 2 staff that's being proposed. Is that enough?
Well, and Alderman Braithwaite, members of the committee, there's no question in my mind that a second staff member is necessary to process the people that are coming in. Right now you have one staff member, Henry Colquitt, who's the primary staff member doing that, has been with the township for several years. He needs help, and so Director Thomas Smith and I are going to work to get him a colleague to help him with that work. And this will be an ongoing process. Regardless what happens, we're committed to, providing the best services possible. Your township staff is committed to do that. If they become city staff, they'll be committed to do that. And Mr. Chair, if I could just maybe finish the last 2 points on the memo. The timing, there is no specific process in statute for how the dissolution will occur if the election is in the affirmative. In working with the Corporation Council, we felt that certainly over 60 to 90 days after the certification of the election would make sense. Again, since we are already working on integrating them, perhaps that could be a shorter period of time, but I don't see any reason why it would have to be any longer than that 60 to 90 days period, probably something shorter than that. And then evaluation, again, I think it comes to reporting. They collect a lot of data in the township offices. It's just a matter of making sure that that data is presented in a format that is correct and accurate. But they do collect a lot of data. So I think we'll be able to do that. I think the comparison of the levy over the years will be measured as a cost savings, and certainly we can add specific performance measures as we have in other city departments for GA, the emergency assistance, and the property assessment services. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that's sort of an overview of the plan that was requested by the League of Women Voters. I'll work with Mr. Farrar to determine what might be a good course for additional community dialogue between now and the middle of March, and we'll come back to you at a future meeting with some suggestions.
Alderman Rainey.
well, I guess I've come across as critical. I just wanted to say that report that you provided us with, Wally, was excellent. I don't think the League could ask for any more, and either could we. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions for the city manager? I guess before, staff goes off, I just want to be clear, and if I'm the only one who's going to say it, I'll say it. I'm very concerned if this takes place without the community meetings. And so I hear on one side the concern about campaigning, and I trust our city staff isn't going to campaign for anything. I mean, the votes are lined up where the votes are lined up. And so if we're going to have a meeting, as we discussed earlier, to be transparent to all of our residents, I think that that's in order. And so I don't want them going off and then coming back and saying that we're not going to do any committee meetings. So I just want to get some kind of clarity from the council. So for anyone that's watching and paying attention to this, we're just being as transparent as possible. Okay, no comments.
Well, I already made my comment. I think we should wait until we hear back from the league, which I would assume would be within, a few weeks, and then we would know, if they're going to do community meetings as well as us doing informational.
Right.
I think there's difference in terms of the type of meetings that we do.
Right.
I think we have a responsibility to provide the community with information.
Right. And I hear you and agree, and I'm also advocating for the residents that are served by the township services. I think that they deserve to have a voice in this process as well.
Absolutely.
Alderman Rainey?
The only reason I brought it up is because every piece of information we would give out would be based on the fact the referendum passed. We aren't going to be giving out any information that is neutral. It'll all be about, if you pass this, then here is what we will do. I hope our attorney can come up with a way we can do this, but I'm just thinking it's...
So what I hear, and I hear your concern, but I also hear we want to make sure that we wait for the League of Women Voters to respond to the answers presented by the city manager. I'm just repeating what I hear. And I want to be clear that I would hope as part of this dialogue to the city manager that the residents who are impacted and served by the resources are part of the dialogue. And I don't want that to be perceived as campaigning, just stating the facts. If the goal of what we're trying to do is streamline and be more efficient, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a meeting to talk about that and getting feedback from the clients who would be affected.
And it may be as simple as just having a town hall meeting of sorts on township services as they currently exist. So Mr. Farrar and I will confer. I'll reach out to the League of Women Voters Board, and we'll come back with a report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, item 6, donation policy for utility bills and wheel tax applications.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this was a referral to the Rules Committee a couple of months ago, asking the question, what would it take for us to create a policy? Is it possible? Is it feasible? And so I asked Jonathan Williams-Kinzel, our ICMA Local Government Management Fellow, to take on this task, and he's here with a report. Jonathan, good evening.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm going to be very brief for the sake of time. Before you, the staff memo, staff recommends the approval of a donations policy that permits the City of Evanston to solicit donations from residents and businesses via utility bills and wheel tax applications to fund City of Evanston charitable entities. The purpose of the policy is to establish a formal set of guidelines in regards to soliciting charitable contributions through city bills. Attached to your memorandum is a sample utility bill. In the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see, yes, I would like to donate to a City of Evanston Police and Fire Foundation with certain amounts, and with a box that says other, so that the payee can make a donation of any type they would like with their bill, and we have the capabilities to divide the donation and put it into an account, and also while they pay their bill at the same time. Right now, as far as formal policy is concerned, the solicitation of funds will be limited to City of Evanston entities only, and entities of your choice. Police, fire, possibly the community picnic is a possibility, but any entities of your choice. Yes, trees as well. Entities of your choice. They would be selected by the City Council.
Quick question, Alderman Fisk.
And are these donations tax deductible?
As far as looking at, we could probably have the capabilities of sending a receipt if they're requested by members of the community and residents of the community. But that's something that we would have to look into a little bit further. But I don't think that would be a major problem. Manager Bobowitz, if you have any follow-up to that question?
We can follow up. I have a quick question, then
Yes.
Alderman Rainey. So,
I'm sorry, can I just finish? And
please.
if they are, we should put it on the bill. I mean,
yeah.
so the wording is there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
And
ma'am.
just a quick question to follow up to that. So I don't know about anyone else, I pay my water bill online. So what will the online process
We have the
look like?
capabilities to do it in mail, in person, and online
Okay.
for charitable contributions.
Mr. Lucas is here from the Utilities Department. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the online piece.
Did you want to, Alderman Rainey, can you?
You raised an interesting question. The online payment, if you have an automatic payment, you don't look at it, so you can't make that decision, so maybe we should, I don't know, that's a little problem. What I was wondering is, will there be choices? I mean, or will it just be Police Foundation and then other? And you
No,
can
no,
fill
no.
it
Met,
in?
Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, we just sort of mocked this up.
This is just a mock-up.
Right, so
Okay.
we would, if
All
the
right.
council directs us this evening to move forward with a policy, or the committee does, we'll send it to the full council, and then we would come back to you with a schedule
Yeah.
of organizations that are, we would make a solicitation among the city support organizations, I think we've named many of them, and then come back with that list. So it would be one a billing cycle.
Yes, and to follow up, per the memorandum, right now staff recommends the possibility of selecting 3 donation times. So 3 different organizations like Evanston, the Trees, Police and Fire Foundation, having 3 different times where you all make selections of where those bills would be donation bills during the course of the year.
Well, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Kevin Lucas, Water Production Superintendent, Utilities Department. In terms of the online piece, it'll appear pretty much the same as it does on your paper bill, and you'll be able to select the amount and add it in, and it will total it for you there. That'll be one advantage to online that you won't have on a paper bill. In terms of auto pays, it will require you to go in and kind of cancel your auto pay for that particular billing cycle and redo it. But if you so desire to give, that shouldn't be a big deal.
And Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, Luke Stowe of our staff has gotten very good at allowing departments to have internet-based payment systems. And I think what we could do is when the cycle, let's say it's the Police and Fire Foundation, we could probably have a link. We would have a link on our website that says, if you've seen this in your utility bill and don't want to fuss with your auto pay, press the button and you can pay another way. So we're very fortunate to have that. I think we're using parts of that system for the wheel tax payments this year, and people like that ability to just pay online. So we're happy to provide that extra added service.
Any other?
Mr. Chair, I don't have anything else at the moment. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer, or Mr. Lucas would be happy to answer as well. So.
Seeing no question, yeah. Seeing no question, Alderman Holmes?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, and I can just hear one more thing on the water bill. It's what I'm fearing that I'm going to be hearing.
That's
It's one
optional.
more thing on the water bill. I'm sorry.
One thing you don't have to pay.
Well, are you kidding?
And also, Alderman Holmes, per your decision, the city council's decision, you all can select how many times a year you actually want a donation on there. Maybe it's just once a year, maybe it's 3 times a year. Right now, we're recommending 3, but if you say we only want to do it once a year and it's for Police and Fire Foundation, then that's it. And we just have the capabilities to do that for you all.
Thank you. We have Alderman Grover. No.
I believe Alderman Rainey has moved it. I will second it.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded to accept the report. Is that what we're doing? Approve the policy. Thank you.
Sorry.
Wait. We
To
can't
approve the donation
yeah.
policy.
Yeah. So let me restate that. Yes. It's been properly moved and seconded. Who moved it? I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, members of the committee, since the Rules Committee is the full city council, I don't know if there's any reason why we need to refer it to the council. So we'll come back to the Rules Committee with the plan for 2014 pursuant to that, and we'll take that to the full council.
Thank you. The last item, and I think this referral was by Alderman Rainey, number 7, rule on reading comments into the record. Did you want to speak to this? I think comment from Alderman Rainey.
I made this recommendation referral because it's absolutely unnecessary to read comments of someone who's not here. If that person would like to send an emissary to read their comments, that's fine with me. But if you're not here, the document that you provide can absolutely be attached to the record. And I don't think our city clerk has any business reading other people's mail. So let's attach it to the record and make a note publicly of who the writer is and what their address is for the record, and move on to the person next in line.
Alderman Holmes.
Well, I thought about this a lot, and I think since I've been on the council, maybe I can count on one hand how many times that's happened. And I've been on here 9 years now. So I don't think it's, if it was something that's abused, I would think maybe we should have a rule. But other than that, I think that it's a citizen's right, maybe at least once a year if they wanted to. And depending upon the circumstances, I don't know people's circumstances, that if they would like to have something read into the record, that would be something that we could accommodate. I didn't see it as a big deal. Takes
Okay.
up a couple of more minutes, that's all.
Any other thoughts, comments? I think it's been moved and seconded. Did you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wondered if our esteemed clerk has any thoughts on this issue or perspective he'd wish to share. If not, I understand.
Don't beat us up.
The Green City Clerk of Evanston. As for the new rules are going into probably where the clerk only reads a Reader's Digest version of the communications that comes to the clerk. The clerk has the right to read communications that come to him. Then he reads, or he or she then gives that information also to the council. There's no stipulations in the past whether the clerk could not do this. I don't see where it will cause any problems to read into it, since there has been other times where council members have read letters into the minutes, and I don't see why the clerk can't do the same thing. Putting a stipulation on that will also cause, it's not going to cause any more problems or any other time to it. It will increase the residents' input, whether they're here or they're not. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Clerk Green. All right. Seeing no comments, it's been, again, properly moved and seconded to revise the city rules on submittal on written public comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Do you want to do a roll call? There it is, roll call. Or raise your hands, I don't care, yeah. All those in favor, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? All right. Motion passes. Any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I have a motion also, now that we've adjourned the regular meeting. I move that we convene into executive session pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes ILCS 120/2A. I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss an agenda item regarding personnel. This agenda item is a permitted subject to be considered in executive session, and is an enumerated exception under the Open Meetings Act. This exception is 5 ILCS 120/2A and C1.
All those in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.